Hello all, good morning and welcome. This presentation is going to be all about the firmware compliance tests and what ARM has done in the recent past to advance the firmware compliance testing in the ecosystem. So let me move ahead. I am Edhaya Chandran. I am from the ARM System Standards Group, and also I represent ARM in the UEFI ACPI DMTF forums. Also, I have been maintaining the EDK2 test GitHub and the code base from the past 4 years. And recently, I have taken up the responsibility of UTWG chair and holding the UTWG plenary meeting. This presentation is co-authored by Samer. Samer is the distinguished engineer and system architect from ARM. Most of you know Samer. He doesn't need much introduction. So the agenda for today is, firstly, I will talk about what are ARM's initiatives in firmware compliance, and I'll talk about the tools that are involved where actually the tests happen. So these are the introductory points, and later we will actually delve into what we have done in UEFI SCT and FWTS. And in the end, I will also give an overview of what the UTWG community has done with respect to the compliance test in the past 1 year or so. So ARM has been advancing the firmware compliance as part of the ARM SystemReady program. And the tool involved is the ARM architecture compliance suits. So other than this, we have also been chairing the UTWG, doing the maintainership, and contributing code to the FWTS, that is the Firmware Test Suite database. So what do these tests check? So the compliance suits, they test the interfaces of UEFI, including Secure Boot, ACPI, SMBIOS, TPM, TCG protocols, and also other ARM firmware interfaces like SMCCC and PSCI. So these requirements feature in ARM BBR, and which is the base boot requirement spec, and base boot security requirement specification. So yes, so the presentation will focus on the recent advancements and some of the future roadmaps. So let's start with the tools that are involved. So the most important is the UEFI SCT, which is part of EDK2 test. So this is the test infrastructure for EDK2 based firmware. This is part of TianoCore, which is the open source reference implementation of UEFI. So SCT is a cross firmware test environment which checks the UEFI spec. So it is a test harness for executing built-in UEFI spec compliance test. And also there is a lot of scope in integrating user-defined test to the test harness. So ARM has done quite a few ARM-specific tests which run as part of SCT and that are downstream. And we released the latest version of EDK2 test just in the end of last month. So there is a link for you to check out. So here you just see the SCT's GUI. So many just know the command line option where we run all the tests, but SCT, we can also pick and choose the tests that we want to run. We can customize the ACT run, and it is highly configurable. So coming to FWTS. So FWTS is the formal ACPI verification tool prescribed by UEFI. So it does more tests and sanity checks in UEFI, CPU configuration, PCIe setup, power management, and security features like in TPM2, and other specific firmware interfaces like Arm SMCCC and PSCI. And UTWG certified the 25.01 version as a formal version for the ACPI verification. So how do these two tools fit in the ARM SystemReady compliance, right? So the both UEFI SCT and FWTS are leveraged, customized, and are automated to run within the ARM SystemReady ACS. So collectively, these are called the BBR ACS. And in addition to the existing test, we have a few ARM-specific checks and assertions, which are run as part of the specific sequence files. So here, in case of SCT, the sequence file is a configuration to the UEFI SCT, which represents a selection of tests to be run. So ARM uses the sequence file concept extensively for picking which tests are to be run. And FWTS2 is customized within the BBR ACS. And we have two main recipes for BBR, that is the SBBR and EBBR. So SBBR is focused on ACPI configuration, and EBBR more on the DT. So for each, we have the customized command line which runs the test we want. So this is a screenshot of the ARM SystemReady ACS. And in the default run, that is a SystemReady band ACS automation, it runs all these tests starting from SCT. It also runs the other hardware compliance tests. Then it will boot into Linux automatically and run the FWTS tests. So that is about the introduction. And now we will move on to the actual improvements that have been done in UEFI SCT and FWTS. So the first major one is to bring the UEFI SCT to the latest spec. So the UEFI SCT formally satisfies UEFI spec version 2.7a, which is the 2018 version. So there is a big gap to the latest spec, the UEFI version 2.11. So though ARM had developed many tests in this gap, especially in the TCG and UEFI Secure Boot related areas, but still there is a big gap. And to start off with this, we analyzed a total of 199 ECRs, which are between 2.7b to 2.11. And each of these ECRs were analyzed to check whether they are feasible to be implemented in EDK2 and whether any more infrastructure needs to be developed to make the test possible. And also we identified the tests which needs community contribution as a whole, and the ECRs which are more applicable to ARM BBR. So we took this up in phase one. Of course, when it is applicable to ARM BBR, it is more important in the larger aspect as well. So an overview of this task was also presented in the UTWG plenary meeting. So then we started off with the implementation. And in the phase 1, we took up all that are ARM priority. So these directly relate to the ARM BBR and the BBSR requirements. And these are high priority also to the ARM architecture compliance suite. And the implementation of this is in progress by ARM. And then we have a phase 2 planned. So these are high priority to UEFI itself. And so they are some of the tests which are less priority to ARM, but still it is high priority for the completion of this task, right? So these are the tests that may be implemented with low to medium effort by the community. So these are scheduled in phase 1. And phase 3 are the kind of tests that need some infrastructure support from EDK2. So there are some points in the spec which are still not implemented in EDK2. So we had a discussion about this in the sidelines of this conference, and there is an action to fill this gap and then move on to the EDK2 test part. And there are other ECRs which are the newer architecture specific, like RISC-V and long arc. And we are in synchrony with the representative of these architectures to fill this gap. And some tests are beyond the scope of present EDK2. So these has to be analyzed whether they are indeed feasible. So all these are in phase 3. So this is the division of the ECR classification. So the good news is that around 105 ECRs need no action. So they are generally documentation based or they are non-testable. So we have around 36 ECR that are phase 1 ARM priority, and 21 for community work, and around 31 that needs infrastructure work. So we have published the link of this entire analysis in UTWG wiki. So there is a link there. So anyone interested can please check that. So this is the overall process that we followed. So firstly, the new test scenarios are identified, and we add this into the SCT case spec, which is a very detailed document of every scenario of EDK2 test. And after the approval of the scenario, we raise the pull request for the actual code. And this test code is discussed in the EDK2 test meetings and approved by EDK2 test maintainers. So the progress so far, around 8 new scenarios were implemented covering these areas, like some basic features like get variable, adapter information, FMP, so EFI properties table. So there are a few more points that are already covered. And I have also provided the detailed list of the new tests. So they are all available in the EDK2 GitHub, and they are prefixed by new coverage or new test coverage. So that was topic about filling the gaps to UEFI 2.11. And this new activity is about the UEFI Secure Boot test. So as part of BBSR, we developed a new set of tests that covers UEFI Secure Boot section 32. And all the rules that are mapped in ARM BBSR specifications are done. And there is a detailed documentation of these tests in TianoCore. So the Major test suites are the variable attributes test, which will test for the attributes of the secure boot variable, and variable update will check for the UEFI enforced control policies are in place, and image loading test, which verifies image authentication, signature, and other mechanism during the UEFI boot. So these tests are released recently, and they are out to be tried. And there is a detailed documentation of how to configure the system before running off these tests. So I encourage you to try these out. Then we had the TCG2 protocol interface test. So this is about the interface between UEFI and the TPM. And we added an entire suite of these tests, which covers the test infrastructure, get capability, and also checking of the PCRs, and so getting the active PCR banks, right? So these are an important set of tests that can be accessed. So on a few other efforts by ARM, one is the UEFI test case spec being converted to Markdown and updated to the latest suite. So this test case spec was donated by the UEFI forum to the TianoCore. And now we have updated it, made up to date, and also we have published it in the Read the Docs. So for anyone new to UEFI ACT, this is a very good starting point. So every test scenario and the rationale behind the scenario is described in this document. And also ARM worked on the mechanism to enable automated GitHub PR reviews and approval. So these were done on the same lines of the EDK2 GitHub. So now we no more follow the mailing list. So we directly raise the pull request and it is reviewed by the maintainers. So that is about UEFI ACT. Now let me cover a few advancements done in Firmware Test Suite. So firstly, we have verified the latest ACPI 6.6 compliance on FWTS v25.07. So this is already integrated into the ARM SystemReady ACS, and it is available. So FWTS also tests for the DT base, device tree related compliance, and UEFI runtime compliance, and SMBIOS and PSCI compliance, right? So we have contributed substantially in these areas, and these are again all upstream. And other new tests that we added were in the check for ARM ACPI tables. So these tables are either specific or used widely on the ARM system. So they are described in the BBR spec. So each table has its own test, and it can be invoked in FWTS by the below command, sudo FWTS, and the ARM ACPI table name. So these are all the tables that we have added the sanity and further checking. So they are very useful, and they are giving good results from the recent compliance. Then moving on to some more recent work, we have added test for ARM SMC compliance. So ARM Secure Monitor Call, SMC, is a software-triggered instruction that causes the processor to switch from the normal world to the secure world via the secure monitor. So there is a detailed spec on the ARM SMCCC specification. So recently we added the test for these three functionalities. So one is the version, and the second one, the most important, it will check if a particular function is defined in the system, and check for its existence. And the third one is to obtain SIP-defined SOC identification details. So these tests are in FWTS and upstreamed. And then we have the new ARM PSCI interfaces. So PSCI is a firmware standard that manages power states in the system based on ARM architecture. And this too is a set of SMC interfaces that allows OS to control the power and the states of CPU in a standard way, right? And here we have supported the PSCI support check and PSCI version. And there is a test which checks for all the PSCI functions. So there are 21 of them. And then we have a PSCI features BBR check. So ARM BBR mandates a few PSCI functions. So these are checked for the existence. And then we have a test for the affinity info. Okay, so with that, let me move on to some of the UTWG community-driven work. And there has been quite a few recently. So firstly, as part of UTWG, we verified the 25.01 version and declared it as a formal suit for ACPI 6.5, right? And the tests are updated in the UTWG wiki. And more recently, we published the EDK2 stable 2025-09 release. And this release was verified on 16 different boards of all the architectures, right? So it was a big community effort, and it was fun and a challenge to bring the community together to do this test. And all is well verified, and we also have the results in the UTWG wiki. So I would like to end the last few slides with a call for action. So there are many things to do. So one is anyone interested in the compliance tests of UEFI and related components must join the UTWG forum. So this is a work group under the uefi.org, and there is a registration link. So we have the monthly UTWG meeting, UTWG plenary meeting, and where we discuss the forum activities, releases, open issues, collaboration, what to do next, right? So please do join the meetings. And currently we have a few active participants, that is ARM, AMD, Intel, Phoenix, and recently Dell has joined. And the second part is to attend the EDK2 test bug triage meeting. So this is a forum focused on UEFI SCT. And again, here we have some very active participants who provide their comments and help to resolve the bugs, right? And another thing you could do is to review the pull request. So anyone can review the EDK2 test pull request. So this is a good way to know what is happening and to learn the system too. And also you could participate in the FWTS community, right? So this is also a vibrant group. So this is managed mainly by Canonical, but they are very receptive to new code and new ideas. and of course contribute in help filling the compliance firmware gaps that are identified. So these are few references, and today we will also have some related talks. So they are so one is by Samer. It's about advancements in the ACPI standards, and another by Sunny, which will talk about UEFI and ACPI compliance in ARM System Ready band, and then the last talk by Dong about ARM system firmware architecture. So, in this presentation, I have just covered the overview of what has been done. So, for any details, I'll be available for a chat today. So, please feel free to talk to me if you want to know details of how things are done, right? And also, I would like to call all the UTWG members during the networking session, so we could go on to a breakout room and chat what is next, and I'll take on any comments or any improvements in that session. Right. So that's all from me. Any questions?